Hello everyone. Welcome to Espresso with Matt. I'm here with Rich Bruno, who's an executive coach, business consultant, and a personal coach also. Rich, welcome to Espresso with Matt. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you today?
I'm great, Matt. It's so nice to be with you. Thanks for inviting me. This is going to be a great casual chat for us.
I'm excited about it. So, Rich, as we start every episode, we got to talk about what we're drinking. So today I got my double espresso. It's kind of a cold day, a little bit. I need a little extra caffeine. How about yourself? What you got in the
I
cup
don't
today?
I don't do the espresso. I have maybe 2 to 3 cups a day.
Okay.
Keurig, real simple. Couple of scoops of, teaspoons of sugar and some low fat milk. That's it.
Rich, I appreciate the simplicity. I appreciate the classic. I've had two tea drinkers, and the last time I had someone on was an organic coffee maker, which was a little too much for me. So I appreciate the Keurig, a little sugar. Let's get to work. I'm excited about you joining today because meeting you through LinkedIn, through my network, and I gotta tell you, I was very impressed. Right off the bat, meeting with you, and you immediately wanted to connect in a Zoom meeting to kind of chat and everything like that. The power of networking and that. So I really appreciate that, and the idea of meeting all these great new people I've been meeting on social media and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Rich, tell me a little bit about how you've kind of built, your social media presence a little bit and your connections.
Yeah, LinkedIn has been the platform for me, really, based on the space that I'm in. I do have Instagram and Facebook accounts, but I find LinkedIn to be most effective because you can make the best connections professionally, again, for me. And what I did is, Matt, I really committed to developing content and consistently posting. I think that's really important because that attracts other people to connect with you. And then, of course, you could always do some cold outreach. You see people that like your posts and, you're not first level connections, but they have an interesting background. So, hey, I'd love to connect with you. And you build your network from there. And I have to tell you, networking is where it's at. It really is. I mean, look, if you want to work with anybody, let's just say in my space, as an executive coach, you need to go beyond the know, like, and trust before anything happens.
Absolutely.
Right. So I am a very relationship centered person. So I genuinely want to do that outreach to get to know more people. I have a mentor that always said to me, you can't know enough good people. Right.
True.
So, and it's
True.
true. So you and I met through LinkedIn connection,
Yeah.
right? And you're a great guy. So I just love being able to connect with other people. And what I find really valuable is I go into it with a giver's mindset. It's not transactional. It's not, oh, I better connect with this person because like maybe I can get work from them. It's, you know what? Let's get to know each other. Maybe there's some common threads, just looking at their profile and they like some of the same things I do. They know some of the same people. Maybe there's some way we can help one another. And but again, it's first about starting the relationship and getting to know people. So it's consistent content, it's outreach, and I think you need to be committed to doing that. It's not a
Well,
one and done. You have to stay
well,
with it.
I'm going to do my best to hold to that standard of being a good guy. I really appreciate that. And I will tell you, Richard, from the beginning, meeting with you, talking with you, I got that sense from you. You were just really getting to know me, and that was really amazing these days and age, and how we can take a technology which is wonderful and use it for positive things. And I think you did a great job with that, and continue to do a great job. I love your content. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I mean, if you haven't seen it, get out there, get on this page. Some great content, great pep talks, really good energy. The elevator pitch of really what your background has been and your career.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, Matt, I'm gonna really I always prefer to start with who I am. So I'll do that real quick. I am a really proud dad of 3 kids. Twins in college, they're sophomores. I have a junior in high school. I live in Freehold, New Jersey. I'm married for over 27 years, have a big family, and that's really what I'm all about. I'm about relationships, family, friends, and that's just kind of what makes me tick. It's really important to me.
So
So
who's
I always
cooking the
start with
turkey? Who's cooking the
so
turkey next week? Who got the
yeah, right.
turkey?
Well, we're hosting, so that's like
Oh, there you go.
so yeah. So that's just a very important part of my life and a very, very big part of my life. So I mentioned that first. In terms of my professional background, I'll call it like the way I like to describe it is the three legs of a stool. So I had a 30-year supply chain career as a supply chain leader, worked with three great companies. The last one was Johnson and Johnson for like 16 years. In that career, I was always focused on talent management and development. There's just something about leading other people and helping other people to be better that really was an important thing to me in any role that I had. So always focused on leadership and helping other people.
Awesome.
Coincident with my supply chain career, about the last 7 years of it, leading up to 2019, so the 7 years prior to that, I started as an entrepreneur. I became a small business owner in a franchise organization called the Max Challenge, and it's a health and fitness program. And I did that really out of a desire to help people, live happier, healthier lives. That was really it. I took the program like, this program's awesome. So many people need it. I want to go do that. Was never a business owner, had no idea what I was doing, but I had a lot of great credentials from my corporate career. So I knew how to manage a budget. I knew how to deal with people. I knew being customer centric was important. All of those things I brought in as, I would call them, transferable skills to start a business. But it was purely a passion play. And I've been doing it for the last 11 years. So coincident to the corporate career, I had entrepreneurship for 7 years. That was a really tough grind. And now fast forward to the present, I retired at 55 years old in May of 2019 and went solely to working on my small business, left the corporate environment. That was all about quality of life. I wanted to improve my quality of life. I was running like a hamster on a wheel. I was not invested in the relationships and family to my liking, so I decided to let go of it. It was a very easy decision actually, but it was a very important decision for me to make. So went to the small business ownership exclusively. About 3 months after retiring, I got certified as a John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. So I now have consulting, personal coaching, business consulting that I've been doing for the last 5 years. So those are the three legs of a stool: corporate career, entrepreneurship, and consulting and coaching.
Well, I love the fact you start with family, and happy Thanksgiving to you next week and everyone out there.
Yeah. Thank you. Same to
Wonderful, wonderful time. And I love when you talk about transferable skills. So many people in these days and age are saying, I only did X or I only did Y in my career. And thinking through about those skill sets, I worked in behavior health over the years, many years. I used to work with troubled teens. And one of the conversations I had with kids all the time was, I have nothing. I said, well, listen, you used to steal cars. That's a skill. You know,
you.
I don't know how to do that. How do you transfer that skill? Funny story. I talked to one young man after he came back after years, and he was one of these kids who ran away a lot. You know what his career was? He became a locksmith of all things. But
There
anyway,
you go.
the great thing about you, Rich, is you talk about the idea of you taking these corporate skills, moving to private business, also then moving to consultant, and such an inspiration to me as I'm kind of recalibrating myself a little bit
Hmm.
too. What are the skills again? So thank you for that. It's really important. You're working with someone as a coach or yeah, how do you have that kind of strength-based approach? What do you do? How do you manage that? And how do you kind of work with people on their strengths from there?
How do I work with people on their strengths in a
Yeah,
coaching environment?
yeah,
I think I always start with wanting to understand what their true needs are. And sometimes they need to discern that themselves, right? So we go through a discovery first. The first thing is I want to get to know what the person's objectives are. Like, what are they trying to accomplish? And many times it's coming from a place of, I have to say, not being very confident, right? So they're coming from a place of, I can't figure it out. It's never worked for me. This is always going to happen to me. And so I think at first and foremost, it's building or strengthening that mindset muscle. That's the very first thing. And I do feel like I bring a lot of that positive energy, right? So I feel like anything's possible. I really do. And I think it's important to impart that way of thinking to the people that you work with. The clients that you have, whether it's individual, even in businesses. I'm struggling to be more successful. Well, let's dissect what you're doing. What's going well, what's not going well. So you want to leverage the strengths, keep doing those things, but more often than not, to be honest, Matt, it's about drawing from where they're not doing well and changing that behavior, finding different strategies. And I have to say, I really think that at my core, If someone asked me to describe myself, I would say I'm a problem solver. Not
Yeah.
necessarily for other people, but it starts with myself, right? I have an engineering background. Engineers are problem solvers, right? So had a supply chain career, been in many crises, had to solve problems, right? Was leading people, there were challenges, had to solve those problems. Small business, we went through COVID in the health and fitness space. That was just
Oh my God.
crazy,
Yeah.
like beyond crazy. Shut down for 6 months, 9 months of severe restrictions. You got to have a strong stomach to get through that.
Yeah.
And you have to be a problem solver. If you are, I'm the victim, this always happens to me, I don't know what to do, you know what? It's game over. It's game over. So,
Yes.
what I try to impart, long answer to your question, with anyone I work with is first believing in themselves. There is a way out, there's a solution. We're going to find it. And you build that up, and then that becomes a strength of theirs. That's sustainable, actually. That's not just one and done. They start to develop that mindset, they carry that forward.
Yeah. I mean, there's a flywheel wheel effect, right? You have a minor success, another success, it kind of builds on each other. And I think that mindset really is so important. I mean, people underrate those skills of showing up, being determined, of having the right attitude, be willing to learn. You know, 9 times out of ten, you give people those type of frameworks. If they're willing to learn, they're willing to be reflective, have that emotional intelligence, you can do a lot with those type of people and yourself. And so, Rich, I love the fact that you talk about that problem solving and the idea, but it really comes from you in relationship building. I mean, that comes so clear in
Thank
your
you.
conversations that you're all about that relationship. You're all about building that trust with people, and you can see that through all of the work you've done. And every time me and you have talked, it's very clear. Relationships are key for you. I want to know about this concept you have in your of you can have it all, and that sounds great to me. What's going on with that? How do you describe that? What does that mean for people out there?
Yes. So it starts with having the discipline to make choices. That's what I'll start with. So there's a model I developed called the well-balanced leader model. And it was driven by my own personal experience. I told you that I was running and gunning 100 miles an hour. I had to pump the brakes, right? It was a quality of life decision for me. I was all in on driving results, business wise, my personal business and my corporate life. And the price that I would pay is not having the fulfillment in my personal life. And I saw so many executives and still do see so many executives that they're those rock star executives, but that's their being. Let's face it, there are a lot of demands from companies on the people that they employ, right? So I could totally understand that. But the point about this well-balanced leader and having it all is to suggest that you can make choices to be very effective in your professional career while still having the things that make you whole and satisfied as a person, like self-care, your own interests and hobbies, your relationships, your family, right? Imagine you're this executive, and this is how I developed this model. And it's got 5 components, which we could briefly talk about, but imagine you're an executive who's all in on, I've got to drive these results. And you got, all the accolades. I got that 10x business growth. Okay, fine. You go and retire. What's left? You've done your part in corporate America, but you know what? Now you open your eyes and like on the other side of this, and you're, yeah, I don't have the relationships that I was hoping I'd have. Geez, I don't even have any hobbies. Like, what do I do with myself? And so this concept of total fulfillment, you could have it all, is just that. Stay focused on your needs. Do not compromise them. Make choices to stay true to those needs because there'll be a day that you won't be working anymore. By the way, when you leave, they're going to do just fine. Happened to me. I retired at 55. You think J&J suffered from me leaving? No, they replaced me. So no slight on them. I loved working for them, but I can say with great conviction that I have a fantastic life. And it's because I never lost sight that that was most important to me. And that is actually the reason that I retired.
And Rich, I gotta tell you, as we're following up on the discussion, for me, it resonates so much because, as an executive, through COVID, you talk about all the challenges there. And, for me, people were starting to approach me about, hey, Matt, what about your wellness? What about you? I was like, I don't have time for that. Right. And you can only run a sprint for so long.
That's
And
right.
and one of the things I gotta tell you is that I reflect a little bit back on my growth as a person, and really it does come down to all those other aspects of it. You know, and look, I'm always gonna be a hard worker, and there's a lot of hard workers out there, but how do you balance the other aspects of it? It's such an important conversation and something that every leader has to talk about. And I'm glad we're having these conversations, about mental health, wellness, stigma, more and more out there. Probably 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't have this conversation in the boardroom with executives. They would, throw you out there. Now people are starting to have these conversations. I think that's one of the good things that's come from, whether it was COVID or some other things in society right now. We're having more conversations with that. You can't be successful without the total picture of life. And, it's such a great model. I really appreciate bringing that forward. I gotta tell you, you mentioned you're retired. I'm not sure if that you're classified
That's
as a
yeah,
retired for all you're doing. I mean, you got a lot going on here, but you talk
right.
about retirement as your best chapter, and I love that perspective of where you're at right now, and the idea of the focus of that thing. So talk a little about that. You call that your best chapter right now.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
talk about that for a moment.
It absolutely is, without a doubt. So tying back to the decision to retire, I'll kind of jump off from there, right? I was going at a pace that was not sustainable. You said you can't sprint forever, right? It was not sustainable, and I had to make a choice because I wasn't happy with my life. I was compromising too much. But I am a very driven person, so it was very difficult for me to just kind of flip a switch. After time, over time, I should say, 7 years of grinding it out with a small business, which was not a part-time gig, and having a very, very full-time and demanding corporate role and raising a family, I had a lot of balls in the air, right? So back to the best chapter. When I made that decision, I will tell you, a lot of people thought I was absolutely out of my mind. Just turned 55. Wait a minute. You have twins that are 14 and 11-year-old and you're retiring? I'm like, yep. And like, but you can't. No, I can. And I'm going to. And so it was with such conviction. And I think that's an important point. So a lot of my messaging around retirement, making that next chapter the best chapter is let's think about what's important, check the right boxes, ask the right questions so that when you go into that chapter, you're ready to make it your best chapter. I was fully ready to make it my best chapter because I didn't just willy-nilly woke up one day, I'm ready to tap out. I thought about it probably for a good 6 months. I talked about it with all the right people, my wife, my financial advisor, right? I told my kids about it. They had an interesting, reaction to it, but all joking aside, I vetted this in my mind thoroughly, and I was so totally ready to jump, knowing that I was going to be fine because I was willing to bet on myself and I was so committed to making my next chapter my best chapter. It was a mind back to the mindset. It was, you know what? I'm going to have freedom. It's going to be so liberating, but I'm not going to waste it.
Rich, I gotta tell you, so many people have to hear that message. And I was an HR leader for many years, and I worked with people as a retirement, and it was really hard for a lot of people to understand a life outside of work. And you can't plan that overnight. And to do meaningful things. I had a great mentor, Mr. Don Parker, was our CEO before we merged, and he used to talk about this book about halftime and doing meaningful work, and it was so important about the idea of that meaningful work doesn't have to end when a career ends. There's so many other things to enrich your life, Rich, and it's such an important message that we all have to hear at any stage of life. It's not just all about what you're doing in the office or your business. How you have that enrichment, that fulfillment in all aspects of it and being ready for that next stage of life. It really is really high level thinking there, Rich, and really something that people need to hear more of. We're going to about to get into our espresso round
Okay.
of questions here, which are always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So one of my questions I always ask is, have cups of coffee, over cups of coffee. What's the best piece of advice you ever got from someone over a cup of coffee in a sit down meeting?
I would say first thing that comes to my mind is getting advice that you can't plan everything. So I grew up as, very driven, hardworking, always tried to excel in every role I had, and tried to plot everything out and
Hmm.
realized that, life happens.
Yeah.
You can't plan everything. And I actually give that advice to other people now. I did a talk to the university, and one of the key things I said to them is there were graduate students said, don't try to plan everything. Don't. So that was a very important message that I needed to hear at the time. And it definitely helped me quite a bit because it enabled me to kind of go with the flow a little bit more.
You plan for the best, prepare for the worst, and I always like the one where it was a guy that laughs at the plans of mice and men. It's such great advice, and it's really true. Um, along that vein, sometimes you think about if I could go back in time. If I could go back in time, you could have a cup of coffee with your younger self and give your younger self some advice. Besides, the bet on the Super Bowl teams, what advice are you giving yourself, a younger version of you?
I actually, very, very timely question. I did a talk at Rutgers, and it was about building your brand. And the professor at the end said, what would you want to leave these students with? Like, what kind of advice after all of that, we talked about mindset, we talked about career development, leadership, a whole bunch of topics. And what I said to them was, don't plan everything. Three things. Don't plan everything. I said, passionately pursue what you love in your life and your career. There is nothing more important than, in my mind, than doing something you love because you're going to bring your best self to that. And we all deserve that. So strive for that. Do what you love and passionately pursue that. The third piece of advice I gave them was embrace adaptability. They were going out into their careers now, right? So, hey, you want this next job in 18 months. That may not happen. All right, you got to pivot, do something else. Adaptability for me was COVID with the health and fitness business, right? The gyms were shut down like that. The next day, we were doing virtual workouts from my living room on Facebook Live. Like, you don't have time to just wallow in stuff. Just adapt. That is probably the greatest skill set, in my opinion. I'd love your opinion. I think that's one of the greatest tools or skills for anybody to have adaptability.
Yeah. I think, change, we try to process change, but I really think change management comes down to how do you handle the unexpected issues? Sometimes you get stuck somewhere when something happens and you have to change to it. I love that book, Who Moved My Cheese? I read it all the time. And for me, it's the idea that a lot of things happen in life that you don't plan. You don't want to plan that happen. And how do
Mhm.
you adapt to that? You build those skills or those relationships, those communication, your internal, you do those mental and physical workouts basically for yourself to be ready for that change. You know, I'm a football player by nature, and then in college football, we used to take our steps every day in practice, these foundations. And I asked the coach one day my senior year, why do we take these steps in practice every day? He goes, well, Paulzano, because if everything goes to hell, you can still take the right step and block someone, and then maybe take a lap. And so, but for me, it's such a thing. If you work on the foundations, you're ready for them to change it. You're ready for that, and I love what you're saying there about being adaptable, being ready for that, working on those foundations in yourself. Those aspects, your relationships, your family, gets you ready for change, gets you ready for what's going to come through your life. Such a great lesson, and what lesson I think we learn as change happens to us, as things to get taken away from us in life, we start learning those lessons. I think me at 21's like, don't need to figure it out yet. You kind of figure it out as life goes on. Um, you have an opportunity to talk to leaders all the time, Rich, and what a great opportunity that is. What's pieces of advice that you want to give to any leader out there right now over a cup of coffee?
Great question, and thank you for that. Leadership is really important to me, and it's something I've always focused on trying to be the best I could be at being a leader. I think what's really important for a leader, there are so many dimensions of great leadership traits, so we can't go through all of them, right? But I think one of the first things I would say is be a great listener. Just use your ears. Just invite people to bring their ideas to you. Let them know it's okay. And I think that empowers the people that you work with. I also think it's extremely important to focus on relationships. So maybe those two things, like for me, I always found that, and John Maxwell preaches this all the time, by the way, but not to take it from him because he's the one that created this, but it is really true. Relationships and communications. Relationships in a genuine, authentic way gives you the privilege to have someone trust you and follow you. That's it.
It's great advice, and simple things, are really hard to do sometimes. I always talk about this, like a pizza. Maybe I'm getting hungry. The foundational ingredients for pizza are the same really at Domino's or the greatest pizza place you've ever been to. Completely different price. You can make simple things can be really done really well. You say listen and engage people authentically. It sounds like a simple thing. The amazing leaders make that simple thing a really authentic process. So great advice for Richard. And everyone out there, as a leader, you gotta listen, you gotta communicate, you gotta listen to people. Last question in our espresso round here. Cup of coffee, anywhere, anytime, any place with anyone. What are you choosing?
This is a tough one for me. I look up to so many different people. Everyone's got people that have influenced them. And this is going to probably sound a little weird, Matt, but I'm going to say my grandfather. And it wouldn't be coffee. It would be a drink at a bar.
Yeah.
And he was just that kind of guy that was just, I respected that he was a grinder. This guy stopped businesses. He was just a survivor. He was a merchant marine warrior, but a survivor. And, he had a way about him that, like, if he didn't like you, if he said nothing to you, then that was a problem.
Yeah.
If he broke your chops, he really loved you. So he's been gone for 25 plus years now. He passed just before my wedding. And I'd love to just shoot the breeze with him.
Well, Rich, it sounds like you do a lot of his work. I'm sure he's very proud of what you've accomplished in your career. Thank you for sharing that. That's really awesome. Well, Rich, before we wrap up here, you got your LinkedIn page with Bruno. Where can people kind of get in touch with you, learn a little bit more about the work you do here?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Matt. And this is just such an enjoyable conversation with you. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing because I think you're bringing so many other people's thoughts and experiences to others. And that's just a really wonderful thing. So please keep doing that. And I'm honored that you asked me to be a guest. So where you can find me, richbrunoconsulting.com. So I have a website. It talks about executive coaching, keynote speaking, business consulting. It's got a lot of little clips in terms of YouTube things that I've done. And it's a way to connect with me. So you can go to free 30-minute Zoom, just click on that box and we can have a chat, but that's where you would find me.
Rich, well, I appreciate it. Really been an honor. Thank you so much. And really, again, for me, connecting with new ideas and new people has been really the power of this networking for me. I'm honored to talk to you. I really am. I think you do great stuff. And I'm really excited about this. I hope you have a wonderful holiday next week. Enjoy that turkey sandwich and stuffing
Yes.
afterwards. I'm looking
Leftovers are the
forward.
best.
Oh yeah, it's the best. Rich, till next cup. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes. And have a great Thanksgiving to you and your family and everyone who's listening.
Thank you.